I'm Tony Ruiz of Gold Derby here with Rachel Morrison, the director of The Fire Inside. And Rachel, I just want to kind of jump right into this because I love this film so much, and this has been such a journey, and I feel like that's well
Mm.
documented of the journey that this is. And so, now that you're at this point, um, is it a weird feeling of being at this point where like the film is coming out and you felt like it wasn't going to happen? Is it weird to be in this position right now?
I mean, yes and no. On the one hand, it feels like the dream sort of fairy tale ending to this long journey, and I'm like a Christmas release, full wide theatrical, like couldn't be happier. And on the other hand, I feel like I'm still being like, please go see the movie. I'm like still banging on doors. I mean, I guess that's everybody, and certainly with our industry. But also when you have a film, that manifests like a typical sports movie, but actually has a lot more to say. And when you have, it's like just trying to help people understand like it is for everybody. Truly, like this is a family inspirational movie. Like I took my 9-year-old son, so I would say nine's probably the bottom age, but like from nine up, you can take your grandpa. Like, and it is a crowded marketplace with lots of great films. So it's also just trying to cut through some of the noise and even if it's not the first film you see on Christmas, make it the second. Like, so I feel like I'm still, waiting with bated breath and hoping people actually get to see the film in the theater. I've been reassured that like these films tend to have a second life and they come on the platform and all that. But it's like I'm a theatrical girl. Like, go see it in the theater. It's a boxing movie, the sound design, all the things. Like, I just want people to actually see it. But also, yes, I'm excited and like there's definitely been a bit of a like I can exhale now.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I feel like this is a boxing movie for sure, but this is so much more than a boxing movie. I feel like this kind of takes those tropes of a traditional sports movie and kind of, upends them in so many ways. And I'm curious, was that part of the appeal of this film?
You're exactly right. Yeah, when I said it was a boxing movie, I meant specifically with the sound design. It is so much more than a boxing movie in narrative construct, and it is exactly what excited. Well, it is one of the many things that excited me about the script was the chance to upend the sports inspirational sports format and like make it much more about life and much more about go out with the trophy in the hand and the cheering crowd and like that's it, right? Like you don't kill over and die in that moment. You actually have to keep going. And to me, obviously, for Clarissa to have so much more so many more obstacles actually after the win and then still pick herself up and keep fighting. Like I find that as if not more inspiring than any of the incredible, athleticism she's displayed inside the ring.
I had read an interview where you had said that you have an aversion to schmaltz, which is a phrase I love. And I'm curious if how you avoided that because that is a trope in so many sports films, and I wonder if that's
Mm-hmm.
something you were conscious of as you were trying to put this story on the screen.
I do have an aversion to schmaltz, and sometimes I think things would be easier for me as a creative if I didn't, because God knows how many projects have that kind of crescendo violin playing moment. And even just the things that are successful in television, like there's such a soapy element to so many of them, and it just doesn't work for me. Like I think I go to the film, I go to the movies, I make movies to be transported into another life and hopefully to create that empathy for somebody else. And the second I feel like I'm being told how to feel, it's like I'm like back in the movie theater in my seat. And so I was trying to be conscious. It's the little things. Some of it's the score. It's like, when she's having her down moments, we actually would infuse it with hope. And when it's really sort of hopeful, we'd maybe infuse it with like, yeah, but there's this other undercurrent beneath it. And so it's always kind of trying to balance those things out. And it's like in the moment where somebody's really emotional and crying, I'm not pushing the camera in to like make a moment out of it. It's just kind of standing back and letting them experience what they're experiencing. So hopefully it feels like we're always keeping a foot on the ground and it's not this like, to me, there's something almost more inspiring about it being inspiring as opposed to it being aspirational, right? And so, and it being real as opposed to it being aspirational. Like Clarissa is a legitimate superhero. The superhero version is like everything's, overdone. And I think that feel her I feel her resilience more for just having it be stripped back and lived in, and yeah, hopefully it works. Hopefully it shows through.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I'm a high school teacher in my normal 9 to 5 job. And so I work with students of this age. And I told Ryan Destiny that there are moments in this film where she just has this kind of brooding teenage look that you cannot find anywhere else. It's so unique to a 16, 17-year old. And so she in many ways so beautifully captures this particular person. How early did you know that Ryan was going to be the one to tell this story with you?
I this has been really interesting because I obviously this is my first time truly getting to cast a project, and like the auditions that floored me, I felt it and I stuck by them and they became my cast. And so specifically that was Ryan and that was Olanuke who plays Chris's mom. Both of their performances in the audition, just like I could see the whole movie. And with Ryan, the big gamble was like, was she going to be able to get there as a boxer? And I feel like once I was narrowing in on her, it was almost like, I need you to look me in the eyes and like pinky swear that we are going to put in the work so that we can, transform and really become Clarissa in the physical way, because I knew she could pull it off from a dramatic standpoint. And obviously she said she would, and she did. And I'm so proud of like I mean, all of it, but the physical transformation for her is mind blowing because she really doesn't come from sports, and she does every single one of her own stunts in this film. And then with Olanuke, it was interesting. That was the character I was the most worried about because it would be so easy to fall into a trope there. And it was so important to me that role felt layered and textured, and that you understood that despite some substance issues and some character challenges, like that she's really still well intentioned and she does love her daughter, that there is a core of love there. And again, it was like in her audition I felt it. And I think maybe Olanuke is a mother, her daughter I think at the time probably was around a teenager or young early 20s, but like there was so much humanity in her initial audition that I was just like, hey, that's it. And it's it's validating to see that like trusting your instincts really pays off sometimes. And maybe that's the way, it's actually, I think the way that I move through space a little bit is like, even in the edit, I was thinking about like, there are directors who kind of want to go through every single take of every single performance to make sure that they absolutely got it right. And for me, it's like my editor, Harry Yoon, who's amazing, did such a great job that like I felt it, and I really just focused on what wasn't like. If it was working, I didn't try to reimagine it. Like I trusted that I felt it for a reason, it was working, and then it was just the few things that were bumping that we would kind of try to pick at, as opposed to like, I don't know. I think there's a bit about just like, if it's not broken, don't fix it, and like trust that if you're feeling it, it's working.
Well, and as somebody who has worked on a lot of film sets from a cinematography standpoint, I'm curious if if your background has if it had any influence on the type of set that you wanted to run. If you had picked up things you like, things you didn't like in terms of the atmosphere of your set.
Very much so. You realize that so much of the way a set is structured and the way it feels is top down, and that top is usually the director. I mean, sometimes it's also the lead actor or occasionally a producer, but there are sets where it's such a pleasure to come to work, and every day feels like an adventure. And like those are my favorite types of sets. And then there are sets that are toxic. I mean, this is Hollywood. We all know toxic for a million different reasons, but sometimes it's just toxic because everybody's angsty and clenched and stressed out and snapping at each other, and like that's no fun. And we're giving, we give up so much to make a movie, oftentimes leaving your kids, your partners, your friends, whatever. That like I would like to choose the adventure joy version over toxic, stress version any day of the week. And to that end, I hired people whose work I really respected and then tried to give them support and, gratitude and like a long leash to do their jobs. And I do think that's also been my experience as a cinematographer is that when I'm trusted, I want to impress and I want to do my best work. And it's almost like that's when I soar. And when I'm micromanaged, I'm like, I start to phone it in. And so I think again, like with what I was trying to repeat was like, let's have everybody bring their best selves, and have a good time doing it. And let's make our set look, more inclusive than most of the sets I came up on. And that was also a real pleasure, was to be like, oh, this is how it should be. I wish more sets looked like this, but at least the ones that I run, can start.
You have no idea how much of what you just said applies to teaching too, in terms of being micromanaged versus letting people do their own thing. It's
Yeah.
eerie, the parallel.
Yeah. It's probably everywhere though, right? Like, nobody does their best anything when they're being, puppeted or micromanaged. So yeah. But yeah,
There's a
teaching
moment.
that tracks too.
Yeah. Well, there's a moment in this film where, I mean, I think for a lot of people, I think it's going to be a climactic moment when there's a conflict between uh, Clarissa and her coach, played beautifully by Brian Tyree Henry, um, and that scene feels so organic and so lived in, and so I'm curious, are those types of scenes the ones that are the hardest to prepare, or is it the more like technically complex shots, like, like the actual boxing matches themselves?
I think so much depends on everything. I mean, it's how much time do you have? You know, how cooperative is the location or the set? Sometimes the technically challenging ones are technically challenging and they can present certain obstacles that are usually also very, you know, fun and validating to solve. And sometimes it's these small intimate scenes where it's like, you're moving around in tight quarters. Like again, it's like we wanted it to feel real and not aspirational. So the home had to feel like approximately the size that it was, which then means moving camera around, or handheld, with bodies. Like it's a delicate dance sometimes. So yeah, it's. I wouldn't say that there's a rule there. Like I think it's, sometimes you're surprised. The scenes that you think are going to be really simple turn out to be a little bit. There's something unexpected that makes it challenging. And the scenes you think are going to be difficult, like fly by, and you get it on the first take. So I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't know. But a little bit of both.
With a film like this, I can imagine that, um, that you being, the head person on the set now, is that, have you found that experience to be, some directors call it isolating, some call it like one big, how did you find it?
Yeah, I mean it's a good question. Making the film didn't feel isolating at all. I felt like I had great collaborators. We were making this thing together. But then, the aftermath of like, posting it, but then also like the waiting period and the marketing and all of this, like, and everybody else has sort of moved on and they're, on their second or third. I mean, that was me as a DP. I would like, sometimes I could do 3 movies in a year, and this is like a movie every few years. And it's a very different, you're on different timelines, right? And I think I definitely, first in trying to keep the film alive the first time, it could be a little lonely at times, but then also delivering a film and knowing what it is and what it like being so ready for the audience to see it and then having to wait was also this period of like um yeah, it's like I think I had a hard time. There are plenty of and maybe it'll be different moving forward, but there are plenty of directors who are already on to the next as well. I think I was still so, yeah, to use a mom term, like pregnant with this one, that I wasn't ready to like until this was out in the world. I wasn't ready to start a whole another journey. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It can be a little bit isolating, but also very validating. So
Well, I wanted to end with the concept of validation because, as the first, woman to be nominated for cinematography at the Oscars. Did you feel a kind of kinship with Clarissa being the first woman to win an Olympic boxing gold? And do you see any parallels in terms of your own kind of path with the path that she took following her big success?
Yeah, I mean, I think not that sure the first part of it as well, but like I think more to do with being the exception to the rule, right? Like for Clarissa being a female boxer in a sport that people don't picture women in, for me being a female cinematographer in a craft that people don't picture in, and what, like all of what that means, like the external perceptions factoring in a way that they just don't for men, where it's like not enough to just do the thing that you do and do it well. The pay equity, which they've changed some laws around, but like definitely there are jobs that I have done that my male counterparts I think were paid like double what I was paid. This is now quite a few years ago, but there are ways that I really did sort of see myself in the story. And then I guess the idea of winning and then still having to get up like the next day and keep moving. Like for me, I mean, it was a nomination, not a win, but like that was this huge high. And then I spent a year reading scripts that weren't as good as the ones I'd already made. And you think that it's like that equates to okay, now in the traditional sports movie, like the applause and your life set and that's it. But there's a reason why we don't ever, until this film, you don't cut back to 6 months later. It's because for most people, they're like, okay, so now what? Like there was a scene in the documentary that this film is based on where Clarissa effectively says, like, I did the thing, like, what do I dream about now? I'm only 17. Like, what do I dream about now? And you start to understand even like the sophomore effort thing when people have this great success, whether it's in music or whether it's as a director, whether it's as then you're like either chasing that success or you're kind of at a loss for a minute and then rediscovering, oh wait, I'm not doing this for the results, I'm doing this for the journey, and like rediscovering your love for the thing or finding new ways, in my case finding new ways to challenge myself so that I could keep like enjoying what I was doing and so that I didn't like I didn't want to start moving backwards, so I was like, well, better to challenge myself in all these other new ways. And Clarissa's even at times pivoted into MMA. I mean, in her case, not so much because she's dying to do MMA, but because MMA paid better. I think now, hopefully, boxing will start to catch up. And I mean, she's such a she's such a phenomenal boxer that also very few people can beat her. She just doesn't have that much competition there. So she's like, okay, I'll do this thing where I'm starting over. It's actually, I didn't even think about this. It's very similar. Like for Clarissa to go off and do MMA and for me to direct, it's like, we're going to start from the bottom again, find some new challenges, like keep pushing ourselves. So yeah, there's a lot. And, she's just so inspiring. So hopefully this film will inspire other people, to feel like they can, yeah, find their fire inside or whatever, and like push themselves, and really do it for the love of the sport or the craft or whatever else.
Uh, exactly. A perfect way to end on this. Everybody go to goldderby.com, make your predictions for the upcoming award season. Stay tuned for interviews with more contenders in the coming weeks. Rachel Morrison, a real great pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very, very much.
Such a pleasure to talk to you too. Thank you and happy holidays.